And good evening if you're watching live. Welcome to episode 191 of About the Cards podcast, live tonight on YouTube, as always, with Stefan Loeffler at Junkwax Twins.
10 Central, sorry.
What? Oh, hi. And myself, Ben Wilson, at Our Trading Cards. We're a podcast by collectors and for collectors. We hope to bring you a smart and insightful podcast discussing trading card collecting. All cards tell a story. What stories do your cards tell? We are live every Wednesday at apparently 10 Central, also 8 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at About the Cards. We're available as a podcast everywhere you can find one. A couple of quick announcements. Hey, Nick, nice to see you. We have Nick Diunte at Examine Baseball on with us tonight. We'll get to that momentarily, but he just hopped on, so we'll figure we'll say hi to him. I had a family emergency last week, literally minutes before the show started, so I do apologize. I was not able to hop on after all, so I appreciate Steph and John for covering for me last week.
Best show in years.
It was the greatest show. I have not listened to it yet. That's what's going to happen tomorrow. Looking forward to listening to that. Probably not a lot of hockey talk with John on, which is great. Thoughts are with the Dub Mentality family. Mrs. Dub, the better half of regular Dub, fell off a horse on the 20th, and apparently, according to a tweet by Joey, scans and tests came back good. So it looks like some just minor bruising and whatnot, nothing super serious. So obviously, our thoughts are with the Dub family. He also had another family member lose his father-in-law. Perhaps I forget off the top of my head. So had some issues as well. So keep the Dub family in your thoughts at night, and reach out if you haven't already. I'm sure he'll appreciate that, and the community can kind of close around him and give him a big virtual hug. And then congrats to the legend, Dr. James Beckett, for winning the 2022 Sabre Jefferson Verdict Award for his contributions to the hobby. So long time coming, obviously, Mount Rushmore icon of the hobby, and the part of the About the Cards alumni, right? Been on the show. So before we get into it real quick, I'm driving to work this morning, and they're talking about a topic that we're going to get into a little later in the show, which is the Kobe Bryant rookie card that sold. And they were talking very basic about trading cards, and it was all I could do not to want to call in and correct everything they were saying. So I tweeted this out. Well, the station director and I have exchanged numbers. We're going to try to get him on the show. We've been talking to him over a year about this, and so it was like, he reaches out and he goes, "Hey, what did they say?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's nothing, just some basic stuff." They didn't speak out of line. I was like, it was just like if Ben went on radio show and tried to talk about popular mechanics and fixing cars, the words might sound okay, but I'd be speaking way out of my realm of knowledge and education. And so he's like, this is what he said. He goes, "I always feel weird when we talk about trading cards because I wonder if you might be listening." And he goes, "I just always feel like you'd want to correct us." I'm driving home, and the afternoon host starts talking about it. And I was like, I got to pick up my phone and call because this is ridiculous. And I was on hold for 20 minutes and didn't get through, probably for the betterment of both my mental health and the road rage, and the host probably glad they didn't pick up the phone. But it was just because he was talking about like the Frank Thomas card and the 1990 tops, and misspoke about that and didn't know what the logo man was. I was just going to kind of fill in the blanks based on what the ESPN article said. So anyway, I had fun with that. I really do wish I got on there. But we want to welcome back one of our more popular guests, Nick Diunte at Examine Baseball. How are you, brother?
Hey, man, I'm trying to stay awake here. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? But, after a little bit of a nap, I'm ready to go. So, yes, good to see both of you.
No, let's dig in. We got some good stuff I want to talk to you about. And again, we always get like a lot of feedback about how awesome you are, not to toot your horn for other people. They're always like, I got to listen to Nick talk for hours. So perhaps keep that in mind if you ever want to go live on YouTube yourself. I know a lot of people would listen because of the plethora of information and knowledge you do bring. So with that said, Now that I've stroked your ego a little bit, tell us, when will the baseball season start?
Oh wow. I really have a feeling deep down that MLB is gonna come up with some 11:59 p.m. type agreement so that we don't lose games. I think after all the posturing, I really just believe that MLB knows deep down they cannot afford to have a delay to the regular season. So I think we're going to see baseball as scheduled. It's just going to play out real ugly between now and whatever the latest date is that they can wait until they don't have to cancel.
They're
I
talking
mean,
Monday.
if you look at Manfred, it's not like he's vying for the title of Gary Bettman with the most strikes. It's not something you want, so I would hope that they work to improve that and get the game schedule. I think they put a hard date for the 28th.
It's a soft date.
So
Yeah, so it's a soft date that if by the 28th at midnight they don't have a deal, then they're going to have to start talking about pushing. It doesn't mean like if they don't come to an agreement on March 4th, for instance, that we're missing games. They're just basically saying if the 28th comes, we're going to have to start that next conversation about the delay of the regular season, keeping in mind that spring training might have to have at least 3 weeks of time to get pitchers' arms ready and bats hot. So it's a soft date for now. But at some point,
Yeah, I mean, they're off on the money big and a bunch of other important stuff that I had read and it's just unfortunately escaping my mind right now, right? But they're definitely off on minimum pay. I think there's just some other stuff in the CBA that they're off on.
The draft, tanking, obviously the
lottery, right? Yeah.
Union wants 8. Apparently, Major League Baseball wanted 3 and have met them and said we'll do 4 minimum pay for first year in the scale pre-arbitration, and then where does that need to start considering inflation, and baseball is kind of behind on that. It's very, especially comparative to like football and basketball and their minimum salaries. Hockey, which has similar roster sizes. I know that the compensation, what's the Super 2 player time manipulation. It's like, Jeff Passan had said today, 4 topics. They're still far apart. They're really not. They can get close really quick if they really lock themselves into the room and compromise and said, for the good of the game, where do we need to be? So I think Jeff McMahon and the Constant sides aren't even close. April games are in serious jeopardy. Yeah, at this point, yes, because they're probably not negotiating in good faith.
No, and I mean, if you have to ask who's good, right? I mean, the owner's good because the public looks at the owners all right, hey, you guys have a lot of money, but then the public looks at the ball players and say, hey, your starting salary is well north of $500,000, right? I think people are having maybe some trouble being sympathetic, especially with baseball losing some grip nationally in terms of where it stands. Is it truly the national pastime anymore?
No, football is, right?
Right. I mean, that, and you can say the NBA, and how I see it trending from just working with teenagers, right? I don't see it as number 1 or even really number 2 sport. So, I don't really know if they can afford to do this. You want to add in the fact that, I mean, I know this is really not part of the CBA, but right, when you still have minor leaguers making $6,000 a year, $7,000 a year. And then they went on and said that they don't even deserve a stipend if they're in Major League spring training. Right. I mean, some major league teams do give out some organizations do, but some are content with not giving their players anything. And these guys don't have the money to hold on for spring training. As opposed to
the A's infamously had that where they were feeding their minor leaguers, bread sandwiches. Yeah, that whole story was disgusting what they were doing.
And there's another story that I've been a little behind on my writing that I'm going to do for Forbes that has to do with the retirees. There's a group of retirees that it's about 500 of them that played before 1980 that would have a pension right now if they played after 1980, right? So they served anywhere between 43 days and 4 years, right? The vesting used to be 4 years. Then it got reduced to 43 days after 1980, and MLB never went back and like retroactively did it. And I guess, later on, if, we have to talk about Choli, he was one of those guys. I'll try to tie the story together because part has to be negotiated. So I'll hold that until the end. But there's an interesting story about the small group of retirees. Right now, they actually are affected by the current lapse in the contract.
And right when they changed that, if I remember right, it was Sherry Robertson that the Twins put on the roster for a day because he was like 2 days shy of the pension vesting.
I mean, if you go back in, if you go back in the history, guy Julio Becker for the Twins, who I had spoken to years ago, and had passed, but Clark Griffith reacted. If you look at Becker's stats, he's got a loose pinch hit at bat his last season. That's because Clark Griffith put him on the roster for 6 weeks to get him that into that fifth year so that he could have a pension. You don't see teams doing that at all anymore.
The manipulation is ridiculous, and when you have, when you're talking about the soft cap and the fact that the owners want to be at whatever it is, $222 million a year, before you start getting into penalties and scale it up, and the players want it closer to the 240s, up into the 250s. It's like you're really going to lose games because the owners don't want to go with inflation and start spending more. And you guys can't give yourself, without some kind of a cap and penalties, you guys can't control your own finances and expenditures. And this is why we're going to lose games. I'm sorry, that's petty. And if that's what it's coming down to, if you don't want to keep up your minimum wage salary scale with inflation, and you don't want to reward young players for doing well, you're not talking about every pre-arbitration guy. You're literally talking about the guys that are going to get these extensions pre-arb anyway, like the Acuñas and Sotos and Guerreros and Francos. That, hey, you win a Rookie of the Year, you come in the second year, you win an MVP. Guess what? You're going to get more money. And we're not just going to go from $750 to $825 on an automatic renewal contract.
Right.
You're literally going to lose games over petty ass crap. Guess what? The NFL's year round. I'll start watching the USFL in spring. I don't need baseball. You need us more than we need you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to lose viewership? Cool. We'll bounce. We did it in the 90s, and people still haven't come back, which brings up hobby related.
Yeah.
If there is any delay whatsoever to the start of the season, how do you see it affecting the baseball card market specifically?
I think some people will turn away, right? Because all right, look at the rookie. Look at what happened during the pandemic to the market in regards to prospects. When you had one full season of basically no minor leaguers getting action, what was the difference in 2020 versus 2021 in terms of how the hobby was looking at the prospects, right? There's a lot more interest in prospects in 21 as opposed to 20 because none of them were playing.
Right.
So now apply that to everyone. I think we're going to see a diminished interest in who's now. I mean, I still think vintage will be active. I still think there'll be people trying to flip, but how can you speculate against guys that aren't playing? Now, are we going to be looking at the minor leaguers because they might actually be playing, but not be looking at the current major leaguers and the guys that are hyped? So now do we see a shift towards actually looking at the prospects and vintage, but maybe people pulling away also out of disgust?
Well, I started a retail arbitrage business, an eBay store, for a variety of personal reasons, but I'm trying to avoid selling trading cards because that's my hobby, and I really don't want to focus on that. And I don't open up a lot of new products, so without that, where do you get your inventory? But you source it in Goodwills and thrift stores and garage sales, and you can flip it for profit. My dad's like, "What do you want to focus on?" I said, "Profit. I really don't care. I'll sell coffee mugs. I'll sell women's clothing. I'll sell shoes. I'll sell plush. I'll sell bubble gum. I really don't care. I don't want to sell trading cards." Again, to separate business from hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care. So I think a lot of speculators are going to look at the trading card hobby the same way. If there's no baseball season, cool. I will go focus on quarterbacks. I'll go focus on basketball because I don't care what my inventory looks like. All I care is if I'm into this card at X and I'm looking to sell it for Y, do I really care whose picture is depicted? I just care about the fact that there's an appreciation potential.
Right.
And, sorry, Topps, sorry, Fanatics, your investment in this company just went down because you've lost so many consumers out of your hands. Sure. It's not Fanatics' fault. It's not Topps' fault. It's baseball.
Ben, let me introduce you to hockey.
Yeah. And then hockey's got another problem, which is supply chain issues and whether or not they can, and that's a question I'm going to ask here in a little while when we talk about Series 1 coming out on the 2nd of March. So, Nick, you're a teacher. I have a financial background. What can we learn just as educated individuals, smart people, fans of the game? What can we learn from these ongoing CBA and labor negotiations? I mean, because what they're doing right now is not prudent. And I don't know if that's on Manfred. I don't know if that's on Tony Clark. But we got to be able to learn something, right? I mean, as a teacher, you want everything to be a learning opportunity. What's out there?
You do. So I think, first off, I think the public at times forget that these are still unionized employees. So, right, the employees worked for these conditions. They fought for these conditions. We go back to Marvin Miller. We go back to Kurt Flood, right? This goes back to, Major League finally organizing so that the players can have the prosperity that they have today on the backs of, the people who came before them. And so, right, the union's job is to help set the working conditions, and that includes salary. And even though I said earlier, right, like we're dealing with people who are making, money that's 1% type money, they're still unionized. They're still these are their working conditions. They do deserve raises that are at least in line with inflation. This is coming from somebody who works for one of the largest teacher unions in the country, right? A New York City teacher. So, like our last contract, the raises evened out to 1.9% annually over the life of the contract. Our last contract was 2018. And it got extended a little bit, and I think it runs through September of 22. And because there was like so much time without a raise in it, our raises were 1.9% over the course of 4 years, which is just not acceptable, right? And this city's currently talking about new mayor, hey, I'm looking to still cut the budget. And, we're not anticipating negotiations being pretty. And so labor negotiations aren't pretty. They aren't clean, even if we're dealing with people that make more than what you would consider your average unionized employee, where we're talking about teachers, electricians, plumbers, right, hospital workers, et cetera. So I think that's a big thing, that these are still unionized employees fighting for their working conditions. And if this is what their union president, who they elected, believes is the direction that they should go so that they can get the benefits that they've worked for and earned, then unfortunately, a work stoppage potentially is one of, the things that happens when you are at an impasse with, the administration over employee benefits. We saw this in Chicago. We saw this in Los Angeles. So this is nothing new in the last few years. I'm not really surprised.
No, if we boil this down to the basics, you got a card on eBay, you want $20 for it, and I want to pay $10 for it, and I want to pay less than $10, but how do we negotiate to get to a price that you'll accept that I feel is equitable for me with my personal finances and the variables independent upon me. And yeah, that's a little different, because like you mentioned, a guy like Max Scherzer, speaking on the players union behalf, it's like this CBA is not really going to affect me necessarily because I'm at the end of my career and I've got my money, I've got my big contract, but with all due respect to everybody, the Kurt Floods of the world that came before me that set this in motion, and then the next 20 years, the next CBA, which is going to expire in 5-6 years once it's inevitably agreed upon. We've got to look out for that next wave of players. And if we make concessions now, just like if we as Americans give up our rights to the federal government, you don't get that stuff back. Without getting into specific amendments that are controversial and getting this into political, once you start giving things up, it's very hard to give them back. My dad and I ate at a restaurant tonight and they raised their prices. Once those prices go up, the odds of it coming back down are highly unlikely because those prices are based off of their labor costs, their food costs, inflation. And just because the cost of living, like you said, 1.9% is not in line with the economics, the inflation at 6-7%, if not higher in certain things. Yeah, I mean, when you're spending an extra 25% at the Dollar Tree because they've raised their prices 25%, you're not getting a 25% bump. So your paycheck is not in line with the increases. And if everybody started doing that, now you're paying an extra $1.50 for a tank of gas on top of the artificially high. Anyway, we can go down that road.
Right. Well, and then so what is going to happen for the fan? Right. Like what's going to happen for the fans when eventually this contract gets settled, right? People think, all right, these costs are going to be passed down to the fans, right? A lot of this has to do with like TV contract, like, right, the big source of funding, like advertising, TV contracts,
sure,
right, naming rights, things like that. But even then, the end users, like the fans, are still going to see some sort of, change at the gate, and they're going to equate that to like, oh, the salaries are so high, I can't afford to go to a game. But is it just, again, teams have raised prices? How much would they be willing to go back down to get people in the doors, which they might have to this year?
Well, when we look at trading cards and how much more they are today versus where they were at 2 years ago, 4 years ago, if we continue to support Topps and Panini and Upper Deck at these inflated prices, guess what, guys and gals? They're not coming back down. You go out and buy a box of cards for $400 that 3 years ago cost you $80. You cannot complain about this inflated price. Oh, it's $400. Then don't buy it. Because if we all decided tomorrow just to stop buying these, because we literally don't need it. They're just trading cards. It's just cardboard. Yeah. It's not something, again, we can live in. We can't drive it. We can't eat it. It has no functionality outside of the fact that they're fun to collect.
Right.
If we stopped tomorrow, these prices would go down because Topps and Panini and Upper Deck would have to adjust their prices down to, okay, Nick, you don't want to pay $400. Steph, you don't want to pay $350. You want $300 going once. Go, okay, $250. And all of a sudden you have to go back down.
But who's driving the price? Is it people like you and I that buy the occasional box or packs at our hobby store, or is it the breakers now that have purchased with the sole intent of like, right, turning the cards around? If they're going to buy with the significant amount of demand, and that their customers are willing to like, hey, I'll let you take the front end of the hit because I'll just pay my XYZ fee for like a slot in the box.
Sure.
As long as that demand is there, how much could it change? People, right? If people are like, oh, the season's not starting, I don't want to buy cards. If that's your person that goes to like Target and doesn't buy, how much of a deal is it? Because are there going to be other, like, are there just enough demand from like breakers, to keep this going?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's really what's driving the overall economics of the hobby right now, has been for a while and will be for the foreseeable future. Because if Ben quits the hobby tomorrow, I don't think anybody's really going to miss Ben and the amount of A's cards and only A's cards that I buy, somebody else will come along and buy that higher priced McGuire. Maybe that $1, $2 card here sits in somebody's box in perpetuity, but that's not going to be the difference in them making their rent eating tonight. Because even though I spend a lot of money out of my pocket that affects me personally in my personal finances, it's spread out over so many people that any single seller that I buy from, they're not going to care. Maybe they sell that card, maybe they don't, but they're not making their they're not making their profits at $2-3 a pop when Ben comes along. They'll find somebody else, and that's kind of how baseball looks at it as well. If we just go back to that, if one of us decides, hey, I can't take my family anymore, either somebody else will, or they'll make up their money somewhere else. And I want to save a little bit of time for a personal topic for you, so I want to hit on a couple more bullet points real quick. Kind of quick yes or no. Topps opening day is slated to release on March 9th. What are the odds that we see that actually drop that day, considering the labor negotiations? We think that's going to get pushed back?
Maybe slightly, maybe like a week. I don't think much more.
I would say that. Sorry, I had a thing that I was attending to. I would say that they probably already have the presses running for that, or the cards are at least full well designed and ready to go. I don't think. I think they hold it off, like Nick said, and see what the season becomes. If they come to an agreement a week before the season, Topps hits go.
Yeah,
I don't see them delaying.
So
too far.
You tweeted out today, Nick, that you picked up a 1984 Topps Don Mattingly. First off, congrats. It's a great card. Iconic card.
Nice.
Second off, come on. What the heck? What took you so long? You're a New Yorker. Whether you're a fan of the Yankees or not, it's irrelevant. You're a New Yorker. That's probably a pretty significant card to have. It's a iconic junk wax era, started.
Yeah. So I when the card, right, when I started collecting like late 80s, early 90s, like right, Mattingly was in his heyday here in New York City. It was too expensive for elementary, middle school me, right? It was just too much. I mean, Mattingly was, batting titles and all that stuff, right? He was the man, the Hitman posters, and I guess that card was like a $30, $40, $50 card like that in the Donruss. And I couldn't touch it. Then I guess when the bottom dropped a little, it always held value, right? Like it was always even it was still like a $20 card. And then when I took a pause from collecting, that's just maybe when the bottom dropped on it a bit. But I think in New York circles, that card still is like a $20 card. So somebody put it up on Twitter last week for like $8, and I was like, $8 looks in good shape. It's like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And it's like my 84, the 84 traded Gooden that I picked up like ages ago for like $1, like when he hit but the 84 traded Gooden was like $100+ card once easily. And like I said, this card was really expensive, but it's come down just because I guess somebody just was like, hey, I want to sell some cards. But in New York, if you're of a certain age, someone would see it. And yeah, if I wanted to sell this for like $20 tomorrow, like on Facebook Marketplace, I think I probably could if I wanted to, right? I think there's always a man. But yeah, it's a classic card for me. And, definitely when you think about rookies, I think that's like one of the rookies that people really held on to was 84 Topps. But yeah, I see some copies for like $7-8 here on Check Out My Cards. What are you guys seeing? Because I can't see all of it from my phone. Yeah, I see like $8, $10.
8, 9, 10. There's some that were more, some that were less. Of course, there's some graded copies that, of course, shoot up in price, but it can be had reasonably. I think I remember a friend saying that he picked them up in 2015, 2014, somewhere in there for about $20 for him and Cal. And
what what's $20 anymore in the hobby, right?
Right.
You figure
Well,
the
think
Blaster
about
or
it.
those two.
Blaster or 84 tops Don Mattingly. I mean, but congrats. That's an awesome card. Rich Frank says he doesn't have one in the chat. So, like I said in the chat, you're on deck. Nick got one. Now it's your turn. That's just the way it goes. So, Wander-based rookie cards have taken a nosedive in average sold price over the past week. I mean, are we surprised? People paying $80 out of the gate now. You could have one for about $12 to $14.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, we were like watching the Bowman's Best, in December, right, or January, right? Like watching like the first few people pay, and I just don't. Someone explain to me the psychology of this. I don't get it. I mean, are there that many people that are new to the hobby that know, like, hey, if I wait like a week or two, it'll come down exponentially? Like I don't understand the hysteria. It's always like that. If you can get Topps' product on the first few days, right, the zenith is like up, and then it quickly dives once everybody else gets it.
Yeah, somebody made an idiotic comment on Twitter the other day. I think it came from Facebook originally, so go figure. But they basically said, "Oh, PSA tweeted out that first Pop 1 Wander."
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like an advertisement that's going to make more people want to send PSA their Wander rookie cards. And it's like, are you that Bambi-esque and naive to not think that the second we realized as a hobby, when I say we, that Wander was going to be a part of Series 1 and that was going to be considered his true rookie card by many, that a million of these suckers weren't already earmarked for PSA? It was just a matter of opening the pack and getting it in hand. It's like they're all going that way anyway.
Yeah. And like people who send these in for them to get them back this quickly, aren't they paying some sort of like expedited fee?
Sure.
Like isn't
overnight?
They have to be.
Right. So didn't they just pay at least like $100 to get that card graded?
Probably more than that, because I think you got to pay $150 or something like that, unless I'm mistaken, just to get it graded and then to get it back quicker. We'll get into the actual card a little bit more. Steph just flashed it on the screen. It's a topic during Hobby Talk about the actual sale price of that one. But before we move on to the actual show, Nick, I want to give you a couple minutes. Obviously, we're sorry to hear about the passing of Gonzalo Charlie Naranjo. Did I pronounce that correct?
Naranjo. Yeah, almost.
Okay. Sorry. I pronounced it the
American
plain
Anglicized.
Apologize. Obviously,
Anglicized.
We don't want to see anybody pass away, but
yeah,
we know that you were close to him based on what you tweeted out. So if you'd like to take a couple minutes, tell us about him as a baseball player and as a person. And then, of course, did he have any baseball cards if anybody wanted to go out and pick any up?
Wow. Choli's a baseball player. All right. So he was one of the last of the Cuban major leaguers who played in the Cuban Winter League when pre-Castro. So Choli played in the Cuban Winter League from 1952 until 1961. And what's significant about that is that was like basically the last year that players could freely go from Cuba to the United States. Choli played in the major leagues in 1956 with the Pittsburgh Pirates, played a little more than half of the season. So he was teammates with Roberto Clemente. He came up from AAA with Bill Mazeroski together. They debuted on the same day. Choli, like I said, pitched a half season in the majors. If you look at it, just like, hey, this is a guy that played a little bit. He kind of stats picked up a little bit towards the second half of the season, and you'd say, oh, what did he do in the game? But he played, like I said, almost 10 seasons in the Cuban Winter League. His uncle, Ramon Couto, was a minor leaguer here in the States prior to Jackie Robinson, because he was a light-skinned Cuban right in the 30s. Also played briefly in the Negro Leagues, was teammates with Martin Dihigo. So like Choli's family history runs really deep in baseball. And, through the 1950s, Choli saw everybody. So whoever came through Cuba during that time, whether it was Ray Dandridge, Silvio Garcia, Jim Bunning, Brooks Robinson. He played in the Caribbean Series in 1954-55, right? So like each country would send one team. So you have Cuba, Venezuela, Panama, Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico had the loaded squad that year. They had Mays and Clemente in the same outfield. And that was a Puerto Rican team. You could look it up, the Santurce team from 54, 55. Choli told me some really good stories about playing against them. And in that series, and how somebody misplayed a fly ball on their team. And I think the pitcher and the outfielder like had a fight afterwards. And so that was, funny. And, his time in the major leagues and playing against Brooklyn and, Jackie Robinson and seeing him down in Havana and Mays and Hank Aaron, Musial. He had a story really for Satchel Paige because Choli played in the International League in 57. And Paige was pitching for the Miami Marlins. So he had really funny stories about Satchel playing in Hollywood, seeing all the celebrities because there was no baseball team in Hollywood. So they were like a big deal. So Choli had a really long baseball career, just not a long major league career. And I think a lot of those players that played in the 50s that had those like long minor league careers because of the way the minor leagues were structured and the way winter ball was structured, a lot of them really hold some good stories. Some about, playing with those guys who just came over, through integration and then just the different places they traveled. He was so crystal clear. And I met him about 12, 13 years ago. I met him in 2009. So I guess 13 years ago. And we met at a show in Pennsylvania. I was there to interview Minnie Minoso, who I'm so happy to see get into the Hall of Fame. Minnie was wonderful, wonderful. He gave me an hour that day. And but there was a line to get to Minoso, so I talked to Choli. All I knew was looking up his baseball reference. He said, "Hey, Nick, I live in Florida." I said, "Oh, my mom did at the time." He said, "Let's keep in touch. If you come down here, I definitely be more than happy to show you around." So next time I went down, I called him. "Hey, come see me." He took me to meet Paul Casanova, rest in peace, who had a baseball facility at his home. I wound up meeting Mike Cuellar there that day, as well as Jackie Hernandez. And every time I came back, Choli would take me to Paul's house. He'd say, "Which player do you want to be seeing?" He would introduce me to all these Cuban guys. So every time I'd go down, "Hey, who can we see? Who can we interview? Who can we talk?" We would take these long car rides, and he would just tell me story after story after story. After a while, I started getting some of it on tape, on video. And, he became more of like an uncle, grandfather kind of to me because I realized he didn't have anybody else. He had a cousin or two that lived in Florida who wasn't like super close with until he got sick, which he started suffering from dementia towards the, really in the last like year and a half. And he had to be put in a nursing home. And, that's part of the story. But, we went to the All-Star game in 2017 together because he was honored by Major League Baseball. They honored all the Cuban players that were living in Miami. So I helped a lot of those players get in touch with MLB. I was kind of like the conduit for a lot of them. And, I went in as his guest. He signed autographs for the Fan Fest. I was sitting next to him while he was doing it. They took us around with a whole security detail through the whole Fan Fest. So both of us, including myself, had a security detail, on us at the Fan Fest. We did the whole All-Star game, all the home run derby, all that stuff, the players' breakfast. I spent 3 days with Tony Oliva, who's, again, very glad to be in the Hall of Fame. Rod Carew, Luis Tiant, Berta Campaneris, Orlando Cepeda, Manny Sanguian. We just all spent time together in the hotel, right? Just talking every night, eating dinner. And it was outstanding, as Choli would say. And, but he needed help, and I got to know what the Major League Baseball assistance team was. I didn't know what that is. They give financial assistance to former players, major and minor leaguers who were struggling. That helped him out for a while. I had to help in negotiations with that. And even the union. So Choli didn't play long enough to get a pension. But in 2011, the union decided, all right, all these guys that were caught in this pension gap, pre-1980, they would give them annually $625 per quarter season of service and not a pension, an annuity payment. So Choli got his annual $1,250 check from MLB, and it helped, right? He didn't have much. Right. He had just his Social Security payment, a little bit that BAT was giving him help. At times, BAT pulled their help because they're like, look, we're not a pension. That became tricky. We had to go to other baseball organizations, see if they'd give him help. I had to step in and give him help every once in a while if he had a bill he couldn't pay. But it was like the least I could do, being he didn't have money to give me, right? And I didn't want money from him. So he gave me his time. And I try to realize, all we can do is give people our time. Sure. he made himself so available. We would talk. I miss talking to him, and you got to learn that the life of a major leaguer, once the spotlight is off them, is not as pretty as you would think. He wasn't destitute, but he lived even. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't have a lot of money. Literally didn't have a lot of money. I'd be there at times when his bank account was $40, right? So, you learn how to live small, and make things work the best that you can. And then, like, once Casanova passed in like 2017, Choli really didn't have like a place to go, right? He'd go there to talk baseball. He'd give a little help. Cassie would pay him like $20 a day. He was just happy to have somewhere to go. But again, you look over the course of a month, that extra few $100s made the difference when you had nothing left.
Sure,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? From Social Security check, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's not as pretty. It's not as glamorous. If you don't have like a lot of family, I've interviewed many players. It's a little bit lonely. So, he'd call me from 1,200 miles away, and I couldn't help him sometimes because I couldn't be there physically, right? And that was the hard part, especially as he started to get like a little, memory loss and stuff like that. Luckily, he did have like a cousin or two that helped take him in. And then, unfortunately, he contracted COVID in a nursing home, and he couldn't beat it, and he was vaccinated and all that stuff. But, when you're 87, 88, right, it sometimes just not enough. And, we lost him at the beginning of January, and with it went really one of baseball's kind of great unknown storytellers. And I think there's a lot of Choli Naranjos, across the United States who maybe had bit parts in the major leagues, but have some awesome stories, and this is why organizations like Saber exist, to help capture them. But if you ever have a chance to befriend a major leaguer, it was rewarding. I learned a lot about myself, about life, about, I hate to say it, like being older and not fearing like being older and maybe by yourself, which is a legit fear for like so many people, right? And he never complained that he was like nervous or sad or anything like that. Even if he was, he was happy to have somebody to talk to.
That's awesome. And, obviously from a personal level, we want to, offer our condolences to you, since you did have a personal relationship with him, and with all due to being sensitive to the fact that he's passed. It's unfortunate that with that, just from a selfish standpoint, we lose all of that knowledge and those great personal stories where he knew Satchel Paige or the next person and the next person. And once he's gone, that's not documented. Those stories went with him. And just from that selfish baseball fan, like you said, so many of those stories are gone forever and ever.
Right. And look, I forgot a big one, right? You can search it. If you search him, we want the first few things that come up in Google. He had a catch with the president. So 1954, he was with the Washington Senators. Opening day, a few hours before the game, they tell him like, "Hey, we're going to send you down, but you're going to stay here, for the day, and then after the game, you're going to go back to the minor leagues." So the president routinely like throws a ball into the crowd of players. It ricocheted off somebody else's hands. Choli wound up with the ball. The president has like a right, throws out the first ball, so he threw it to Choli. Well, after the first throw, he said, "Give me the ball back. I want to throw a few more." And that was the first time in history that there it is, right? That the President Eisenhower, that's from that game. And we tried so hard. We called Eisenhower's library. We called the Washington Post to find a picture of actually Choli being in the throw, and we couldn't find it. And that was one thing that from early on when I met him, he wanted so bad, I think, just to show people like, no, I was there. And I have another shot of it of like him in the crowd, like catching that ball. But he was the first person to have a catch, an actual back and forth catch with the president. They sent him to New York the next day. He was on television. He held on to that ball. He sold it when he came back to the States. That was the other thing, right? He stayed in Cuba after 61, not because he was a Castro supporter, but he didn't want to leave his mother alone. So
that's home, right?
It is, but he was one of the few that stayed. He came back in the like early 90s, became a citizen here, all that stuff, right? But he also had. How many people say they had catch with the president?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for sharing that personal story, because that's the stuff that kind of gets lost. And
yes,
you wrote about it on your blog. Where can people find that if they want to
Sure,
read
it's
it?
baseballhappenings.net with an S, baseballhappenings.net. It's the first story that comes up there. You asked about baseball cards. He has one. He is pictured on the 1957 Topps team card. Took me a while to figure that out, and I have that card somewhere here in the house signed by about a dozen guys.
Nice.
I still want to put it in the mail to Mazeroski with a check, but I just am. I learned that lesson years ago. Like, don't send something in the mail you can't afford to lose. Even though Mazeroski is a very reliable signer, I just might hold it without his signature. I have like about 12 players on it. That 57 Topps card. He never got another official card. He had like a team issue postcard from like his AAA team, but he never had another. Oh yeah, I'm lying. He had one other baseball card. It's a Cuban card. And I have that signed as well. But if you look in the top left corner of that card, there's Choli Naranjo on the top left card. So that's his only Major League Baseball card, 1957 Topps team card. I'm sure there's a lot of guys in the 50s who that's their only Major League card.
Sure. No, that's awesome, and we appreciate obviously you sharing a personal story that goes outside of just the normal banter and back and forth that we've had you on and other guests on. It's always and again our condolences for your personal loss and any family and friends that he has out there that it's too bad that so many of those guys end up desolate and alone and isolated and abandoned on an island and don't have a lot of people to turn to. And we talked about the labor negotiations and, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, otherwise, they should do as much as they possibly can for the players that don't play. I mean, we heard the horrible story about Mike Webster of the Pittsburgh Steelers and living as a homeless man in his truck and taking care of his family, ashamed, and the Webster story is horrible, and it's like it's just one story of thousands.
A lot of guys can't transition, right? Yeah. So a lot of people have a really hard time transitioning. I will say Bat does a good job. Bat stepped in after Choli passed. They paid for his cremation cost and a little ceremony that they had for him, right? So I give them literally, and I emailed them the day that evening that he passed, and I got a call the next morning, right? So they definitely stepped up and handled that. But Choli's group of retirees, they're in a really rough spot, and I should be able to dig up something from Forbes in the next day or two. That agreement in 2011 sunsetted in 2021, so it was like a 10-year thing, and it's dependent on the CBA. So they're getting paid out of the competitive balance tax. Well, guess what's up in the air right now is the whole competitive balance tax, and so until it gets set, these guys, I mean, it's a small risk, but right now risk not getting that little payment. And I don't want to belittle it by saying little, but that payment is still significant to the guys that are getting it because they're not getting a pension. And the only way Major League could put these guys on the pension would be through the CBA. There is no mention of them at all from the current union. If the players know, there's so few players that know that even this group exists. And if they do know, it's so low on the priorities for the union because I've had communications with the union. They have really no intention of bringing the guys back. I don't know if they're worried about getting sued or claims. I don't even know if they'll increase the rate that these guys are getting, paid because technically the union doesn't have to do anything for their retirees. They don't bargain on half the retirees, but the optics of it are just crummy, right? Even if they gave them all a minimum pension or whatever, the minimum that they'd be due, I think it would go a long way, even if it's the minimum pension's $4,000 a year or $3,800 a year, right? If you played 43 days and you retire at 62, right? But I think what other job that you work for 40 days do you get even a few $100 a month pension?
Sure.
Besides Major League Baseball. So Choli's in that group. And they're right now they're being held up because of the contract negotiations, but no one's talking about it because only a handful of people in the media actually know that that's part of what has to be negotiated.
Yeah, no, of course, I'd heard of the group before. They in the 90s had released a set with Upper Deck that kind of like the Hassan triple folders. Really cool.
Right, those were to help support BAT. Right, yeah.
The BAT, Baseball Assistance Team. That my understanding is kind of the predecessor or the earlier version of that. Really cool set. And I have a Lou Boudreau signed auto from that set.
I got a few signed cards. They were really nice. They're just oversized lengthwise. It's kind of a pain in the butt to display.
Definitely.
But in a really nice set. Bat's done a lot of good work. I mean, I have some other stuff that, like, you know, but in terms of like the work, and they have these great dinners that I went to a few times in New York here, where they'd bring in literally like a dozen Hall of Famers plus like another 150 players, and then they stopped it maybe like 7-8 years ago because it started to get cost prohibitive, right? Like they weren't making that much money on the dinner, as opposed to just like, hey, I think they could do better if like they pushed harder on current major leaguers to give like payroll deductions, which that's what a lot of them do, is they give like payroll deduction donations to BAT, and that's what keep BAT going.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Nick. You're welcome to stay with us as long as your eyes can stay open. We understand it's pushing midnight. If you need to leave early, let us know. But again, we hope that if you can stay up another hour or so.
Yeah, I'd love to stick around. There's no school tomorrow. I took my nap. I'm good. I appreciate the space in the air. I really do, and I always look forward to, you know, coming on and talking, interacting with you guys and you know, the people that are listening. It's an excellent program, and you know, I think for all the knocks that at time we give the hobby and the interesting conversations that you find yourself in, Ben, on Twitter, I think at the end of the day, you know, we enjoy these cardboards, and they give us, you know, meaning and connections to the game in a very special way.
And that's why I personally at least like having you on. Is one, I get to hear a lot more of quote unquote Joe Cambria's Cubans, but
he was one of them.
Well,
Jolie was one of them.
But it's nice to have I mean, you can read all sorts of history books and all sorts of ancestry websites and whatnot, and that tells you a certain bit. But being able to actually connect a person to a story is a little bit more different, and I appreciate you coming on to share some of those.
Yeah, that's why, like I said at the top of the show, you're a very popular guest because of that type of stuff and some of the stuff that you pull out of your memory bank and some of the experiences you've had with some of this, and you know, some of the Negro League stuff and the Cuban League, and plethora of information, and it's deep and it's personal a lot of times too. So it's not just the fact that I've read a book and can recite that. It's I knew this guy sat next to him, and that's awesome. And Matt McNeil and Rich Frank, a couple people that are currently in the YouTube chat, have thanked you also for this story, and it just begs the fact that, you know, hey, we'll have to have you on again for the next story.
I appreciate that, you know, and I feel like at some point, right, that's all we're gonna have are our stories. But I guess from meeting and interviewing some of these players right now, I can tell from like, right, that I sat next to them, or I was on the phone with them, or spent time with them, right, that like, hey, no, this is what they told me, right, and now I can tell that, and I think that's probably part of my purpose here, right, is to be able to, you know, help push the stories that I've been given to talk for those who are no longer, you know, to able to sit in these chairs and tell it. So thank you again. I will stick around for folks that want to follow. I am at Examine Baseball on all social media platforms.
And he's Twitter verified, which means we assume you have a security detail now because of that Twitter pays for that. And
well, hey, you know, taking mass transit in New York City, you just might about need it these days, you know.
So Nick shared his mail day with us. Let's get into the show. Steph has one. Obviously, you're not probably going to beat the 84 tops Mattingly, but perhaps you will, because I've seen what this is, and it's pretty cool.
Yes, I did have quite a few mail days here. Sorry. First of all, got a package from our third co-host, with Top Series 1, as well as a really cool dual color Ryan Jeffers, number 2, I think 99. Yep, 57 to 99 from Diamond Kings. So I want to say thank you, Andrew from Bayside, for that. That one is last because
That was a really nice looking card, by the way.
Diamond Kings is beautiful. Those double relics are nice.
From work, I had an impressive mail day, including one of 4 of my last cards that I need. So Floyd Baker, now I'm down to Connie Marrero, speaking of Joe Cambria, to complete out 52. I also snagged a Stan Musial Jersey King. I couldn't believe this sold for $8. Can't pass it up. It says game used on the back. Yes,
Those
please.
are nice too, yeah.
And then speak of dub, Mr. 493, Fred McGriff, jersey and bat piece, 2 different sets.
Let's hope today's game vote him in this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he going to get in?
Depends on if he's on the ballot.
PSA 9, Luis Arise. It's also sold under $10. My first CSG case, so I can now give impressions. Kind of dig them. Little bland, but so be it.
Future Oakland A, Luis Arise.
Not the case. Picked this up from a shop. Rich, it's the one closest to your house. Lewis Thorpe, 1 of 6. It's a piece of his jacket, as it were. But once I saw the pad from across the shop and knew that it was leaving with me. I mean, who else?
And he ran in slow motion.
You know, I mean,
Chariots of Fire playing in the background. Shuffled.
And then finally, speaking of the 50s, I got a lovely personal touching note from a certain Topps Living Set artist. Essentially, right after the show or before the show on last Wednesday, got a message from Jared saying, "Hey, what's your address? I have a thing I want to send you." And well, I kind of shared some of the ongoing happenings with Mom as things were going, and saying that she was a huge Detroit fan, huge Tiger fan, definitely loved Fidrich and Gibson, and as a kid, and earlier on, Kaline, sure, but you kind of retired a little young for her, but sent along a 1-of-1 box art piece.
Look at that.
With a touching tribute to Mom. Kaline across the top. Wonderful sketch. And the 1-of-1 in the corner there. So there is some hobby good in the industry, despite Ben's Twitter feed.
You know, my Twitter feed, if people just understood that a lot of it is sarcasm and all in good-natured fun, I think we'd all get along a lot better. But,
with a black light. Interesting.
Oh.
And Jared told me one time that it's not that hard to draw like he does if you just do this and that. And I'm just like, dude, come on. I draw stick figures. You do that.
Right.
It's like... Jared's amazing. He's such a gifted artist and a great addition to not just the Topps Living set and part of the Topps family, but just the hobby in general. He's been such a great addition and can't wait to see what I need the Topps prints to come out because I need his Dave Stewart that he released at the start of this year. I need that on my wall. So let's blow through. Speaking of Topps Living, let's blow through some of this the week that was and next week's releases, just so we have a little bit of time on some of the more important topics. Topps Living last week, Manny Machado and Liam Hendricks were out. Hendricks is amazing. Met him a couple of times. Fantastic individual. Very patient with my kids when I couldn't get my phone to work. And Hendricks is amazing. And that was Jared Kelly's art. Sold 1,700 copies. Number 1 for Australian-born baseball players in the Topps Living set. Machado, this was interesting, sold 6,500 copies the first time with the Orioles, card number 37, dropped to 4,800 copies when he was a Dodger, card 88, and now he's got a third card as a Padre, and it dropped from 6,500 to 4,800 down to 1,500, which is not an indictment on Machado as much as just where the set was at card 37 to 88, speed up 400 cards more, and now we're approaching 500. It shows you how far the set has fallen off. But, hey, still 1,500 to 1,800 copies. I think Jared Kelly's release today is going to trump that. We'll get to that in just a moment, who that player was. Also releasing last week, obviously the big one, 2022 Top Series 1 came out last week. 21-22 Panini Donruss Elite Basketball dropped on Friday, and 2021 Panini Immaculate Soccer. This week, via Jared Kelly, card 495, Wander Franco dropped.
That is so not going to come through.
We're not going to be able to appreciate that black light the way it was intended, I don't think.
No, I'll get a picture with my phone. It says in memory of, and then on this side, it has my mom's name as well as 68 to 2022.
Dude, look at that, man. That's almost going to make me choke up a little bit. That's awesome.
Nice little Easter egg, sirs.
Look at that.
Wow.
Jared, we're free in April, so you tell us what day in April you can come on the show, and you're penned in with black marker. We need you to come back on the show and talk some more about what's going on with Topps Living and your hobby adventures. So Wander Franco drops today. I'm assuming we're going to get more than 10,000 copies of that. That's got to be a high print run, and I'm glad Jared got to draw that one. So that not only can the hobby appreciate it, but hey, he gets paid commission on this, so why not get the big boy? And then also,
does that card wind up with the rookie logo? I feel like I didn't see it on the card, but I might have looked at it pretty quickly.
He's in the chat.
Yeah,
they should have the rookie card logo, and usually I make a note of that, but I threw it on here this morning and forgot. So. It should have the rookie card logo though, because now everything should this year.
So I wonder if it's worth guys going after that card, even if there are 10,000 of them, right? Like it's still less than the Series 1.
I think everything with his name on it this year, regardless of if it's got the logo or not, is going to be bought in bulk because of the speculative. Hey, if it's the next Tatis, if it's the next Trout, Soto. But it's a great card. I love his smile. It's just a good image that they had him draw. And then, of course, Andrew Benintendi.
Actually, it does.
Yeah, there it goes. Okay.
And Benintendi was the other one, outfielder for the Royals. A lot of speculation about him possibly being traded in this offseason once eventually the season starts back up. So we'll see. Top Star Wars Living dropped yesterday and is available through next Tuesday. A couple of cards from the Book of Boba Fett again. Card 285,
which
the
I
Rancor.
finished.
Fantastic card of the Rancor. I think that was a lot of I love the Rancor growing up. And then card 286, Kersantan. I think I pronounced that right.
Kersantan.
Okay. I figured Andrew would probably text me tomorrow and tell me that I mispronounced that. And then Topps Throwback Thursday, available through tomorrow morning. This is set number 7 overall. The third iteration of 2008 baseball. Card 19, Christian Yelich. Card 20, Lewis Robert with the short print variation. And card 21, Steve Carlton getting some love. So glad to see Mattingly got some love a while back. Robin Yount, I believe, has been featured. So it's kind of fun to see. Ricky Henderson was last week as a Blue Jay of all teams. Not the best design. Love it, hate it. But it's good to see some of these veterans.
I was going to say, I know a lot of people love and hate 2008 Topps, but I'm definitely in the love category. I like the childishness of the bright circles in the top. There's nothing super special going on as far as the border, and then just the name and foil on the bottom.
Color coordinated with the team.
Yeah. Very you could throw this and say, hey, this was 63 Topps, and for somebody that's not unknowing, they'd say, yeah, I believe it. Sure.
It's literally like Ben's Twitter timeline. At first, you hate it, and over time, you either tolerate it or you begin to love it. It's the way it is.
It's Steven. You ever think Topps will do a throwback of Carlton in a Twins uniform?
Well, it depends if he gets labeled as an FBI agent. You heard that story?
No.
Oh, boy. So, Twins win the World Series, right? They go meet Ronald Reagan and the AP, everyone around taking press photos and everything else. And when they sent it to the AP wire, Steve Carlton got labeled as unknown FBI agent or Secret Service agent. Sorry.
Interesting.
Unnamed Secret Service agent.
Yeah, it's funny how that stuff, and then it grows legs. The Lucille Ball story. If you saw that Aaron Sorkin piece about her being a communist and how it almost killed her show back in the early 50s. It's interesting how some of that stuff has legs, and once you're labeled as something, kind of sticks with you, whether it's true or not. It's just what it is. So, Steve Carlton, it wasn't Harry Houdini, a spy in for the Russians or something like that. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what the rumor was, that he was a spy. And it's always interesting how this stuff happens, and you get the Paul Bunyan effect thereafter. So,
okay. Given that this was the photo they used, can you understand why this guy would be unidentified Secret Service agent?
Yeah, well, how old was Carlton at the time? Like 43, 44?
Yep.
Right? So with the glasses, right? He looks like, yeah.
If Frank Viola's got to have like a Mount Rushmore top 4 mustache of all time. I mean, yeah, you get fingers and stuff with the how cool it was and grown just to spite ownership. Finley. And if Finley, yeah, I couldn't think it's late over here on the West Coast. It's now 9:07. But Viola's just got that stash. It's phenomenal. It should have its own baseball card by itself. Alert the people for Project 71 next year. And then major releases coming out this week. 2021-22 O-Pee-Chee Hockey came out, or will be coming out tomorrow. Could not find a price point.
A pack on Upper Deck E-Pack. Scored a nice number 265, I believe.
Yeah, no price point on the actual box. Blowout said contact us to order. 18 packs, 10 cards a pack. There's a lot of stuff on the sell sheet, so I did not break it down. The only thing I noted was that there was no guaranteed autos on the sell sheet.
O-Pee-Chee Platinum, not O-Pee-Chee regular. Sorry.
Okay. And then each box should net one rare chase card. And then Panini Donruss Basketball comes out on Friday, $600 a box. 10 packs, 30 cards per pack. You get one auto, one mem, and then 60 inserts or parallels. And then also releasing this week, Leaf Valiant Football drops Friday. And then 2022 Pokemon Sword and Shield Brilliant Stars, Blisters, Blasters, Booster, Trainer, and Portfolio boxes. So if you collect Pokemon, there's a lot coming out. Next week, Leaf Draft Baseball is coming out on the 2nd. Upper Deck Series 1 is slated for March 2nd, which is Wednesday.
Yes, please.
And then Friday, we have Panini Donruss Choice Basketball and Topps WWE Women's Division. So I'm assuming that license is going to Panini as well, being a part of the WWE umbrella. I'm assuming this is probably going to be the last WWE Topps release. Couple cool things. Let's get into the infield chatter hobby talk. Let's start on some good news for once, since this hobby is so damn negative. Thank you, Ben's timeline. Lanny Ribes, Doc BZ17, got the last 1967 tops for his PC. He now has the complete run from 1965 through 2021, he said. I don't know why he doesn't have 2022. He needs to get on that.
He actually addressed that to somebody. He said that he was going to buy the factory set.
Factory set is what I figured once Series 2 comes out too, yeah. He also has some sets in the 50s, including the 53 tops set. Smattering of 52s, but I think he's got like 57, 58, 60, 62. He's really complete. We'll have to see if we can get Lanny on in a future show. I know we've said this before. He's just got an amazing, amazing collection if you are into complete sets of baseball.
Yeah, I'd love to know the journey of how he got there, how long he's been collecting, what he's sunk into like doing. You know what I mean? Has this been a collection over 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? Like what, it's not an easy journey unless you have copious amounts of money. Just buy, and I don't get the feeling that he just plucked these off with like big sums.
No,
that's especially impressive considering 67 and 72 and some other years, or some major cards in that 65 till now run that couldn't have been inexpensive. But yeah, I equally would love to know.
And he has the 53 top set. So it's not like he's working his way back. So next one up is going to be 64. He's got a lot of the other ones from the 50s and 60s. He's only missing a handful of sets. If we start at 53 and move on, because I asked him about 52 and he's like, yeah, okay, right. Sure.
I think did he mention something about the Koufax rookie and something else, right? That like that's evaded him from like 55 or Clemente. I feel like it was him, but I could be wrong.
Probably. I'll reach out and see if we can get him on in April because I'd love to hear some of. I'd really like to know what it cost them all, and so I need a detailed breakdown, profit and loss report. I want to get his wife on too and find out what.
I'd love that conversation.
So, speaking of cool stuff, I mean, you want to talk about something that's friggin' awesome. Rockies prospect Benny Montgomery is got to be one of the best things that's happened to the hobby in a long time. You can find him at Benny_MONT. We know that these kids have to sign just a ton of Bowman crap, and they're not really getting paid for this. Benny, however, is having fun with it. He recently signed a bunch of Bowman cards. I even saw earlier before the show started on Facebook, somebody posted one of his cards saying, "Is this real?" He literally wrote Benny, 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 and then he wrote a picture of the jet, the Elton John song, Benny and the Jets, right? He posted a picture on, I don't know if it was on Twitter or Facebook, but picture of unsigned cards with a question like what to write. Like he has all these cards ready to go and he wasn't just going to sign them. I think some of the lower end ones, or pardon me, lower print runs, I should say, the serial numbered, I think he's signing legitimately, but the ones that have higher print runs, he's signing just for fun, Benny and the Jets and all kinds of fun stuff. I really hope that this kid has a long career in the majors and he keeps contributing to the hobby like this for years to come. I hope he doesn't lose what this is, because how cool is that?
See, this is how I'd sign signatures. Not just scribble next, scribble next. It's just something fun with it. It's I know that we don't like to give them credit, but I absolutely loved the earlier Leaf Trinity runs where the players got to give an inscription or a drawing, or just give them free reign to do whatever it is they wanted to do. It's kind of cool.
A couple years ago, I forget what set it is, so if somebody out there knows offhand, they had. It was a museum collection or something. One of the more higher end or mid to higher end products had a serial numbered, I think, out of 25 parallel set where the signee was supposed to do their nicknames. It was like the nickname collection. So Mark McGwire would have signed Big Mac, and all of the players, Fred McGriff would be Crime Dog, so on and so forth. And that was the intent. You only had to sign 25 of these with your nickname. And I remember seeing the McGuire, and it was just straight up Mark McGwire. And I'm like, seriously? I was really looking forward to overpaying for a Big Mac, and he didn't do it. And I don't know how many of the other signees didn't.
Well, maybe the other 23, 24 got signed that way.
I saw a couple, and all of them didn't. And I don't know if maybe that was miscommunication between Topps and Mark. It was a little disappointing. But I love Benny Montgomery for this. I think that's way cool. And again, I hope he has a long career. Yeah, hey, good for him. Hopefully he has a long career just in general. But we're going to be selfish here for a minute. I want to see more of these for years to come. It's just fun. And you see some of these Cam Reddish type autos. you see my signature, what it would look like on a card. I'd like to think that I would take time as well to sign something fun. But another cool thing, Steph, you shared this Dr. J signing a rookie card for Spike Lee at the NBA All-Star game via at NBA All-Star. The video was cool, and like Spike Lee, dislike him. You can have whatever you feel about him personally, but he literally in the video, if you see it, he looks like a 6-year-old with youthful excitement as the legendary Dr. J signs the Bird Magic Dr. J Trio card. The look on Spike's face literally looks like a kid, and that's what you have to love about. I mean, he's just so excited. And it's Spike Lee. It's not like he's a nobody.
I saw that video, and whatever Spike Lee's holding on his lap, it looks like, did he sign whatever that is that's encapsulated, like the outside of it? He's holding something else that's signed, that like oversized photo or something like that. And it looks like it's signed on the outside of the encapsulation. Like that looks like it's something that's encapsulated. And I feel like that's signed. That was what I got from seeing the video.
Interesting.
Right.
Yes. And I don't know what that is.
Interesting.
Maybe a maggot. There was a good quick shot there.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't had a chance to see the video, go to Twitter and take a look at it. It's just, when I first watched it, I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. Spike Lee and Dr. J, they're both celebrities. And then I watch it again, and I'm like, look how cool. Just like Spike is like just an all like, hey, Dr. J, can you sign this for me? And it's like, again, no matter how famous you are, he's, I'm sure that's probably not the first time that their paths have crossed with as often as Spike Lee is at New York Knicks games. And it's just, to me, it was just fun seeing somebody like him with his reputation and his resume in the presence of somebody else. And it's like, hey, Mr. Irving, can you sign my card? And I thought it was cool. I love the look on his face, whether you're a fan of his professional work or not. Yeah, I know sometimes he gets, and Spike Lee versus Reggie Miller. I mean, if for nothing else, that was great television, and could watch that all day long, all the time.
Tell whether it's a sports program or a photo, but it's definitely a player shooting a ball with a signature that, as Nick pointed out, I think that's on the PSA slab.
Right, because I noticed those.
It's a little too reflective to be on that matte-looking photo.
Interesting. So yeah, check out that video if you haven't seen it. It's just kind of fun, little 10-second watch. A couple of topics here on who else? Wander Franco. If you're looking for the 2022 Series 1 Wander Franco Silver Pack Superfractor, as you tear into your packs, look no more because Willy Wonka's 2022 Golden Ticket was pulled. This was shared via Dewey Lund, who was on the show a month and a half, 2 months ago. Overtime Cards in Utah, which happens to be Dewey's LCS, had the Wander pulled late last week. Pretty cool for them. It's now been pulled, so it's no longer in the wild. My question to you guys, when stuff like this happens, do you think it affects the breaking community at all? I mean, you got breaks going on tonight. Do the Rays hold that same premium knowing that this card's no longer available in packs?
I mean, I would assume it would have to take a small dip. I mean, you're still getting a chance at any numbered versions, any whatnots, but the super being out.
Well, there's still
I can see it.
Platinum base, as far as I know, hasn't been pulled.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's also going to be one of ones on the inserts as well. So there are other, but this is a big one. This is that we all know that the checklist was light as far as players to, this isn't 2018 update where it just had, half a dozen names of highly sought after players and speculation of Bowman. I mean, it was kind of Wander Franco, and that's the checklist if you are speculating. And that's a big boy. That's a top 2 card out of Series 1. So interesting. If anybody sees the Platinum get pulled, let us know. We'd like to share that as well. Steph, you alluded to this earlier. Quick update on the first 2022 Series 1 Wander graded PSA 10 that came to market. Yep. The saying about the first penguin in the water. The Franco sold at auction on February 21st for $2,075 before shipping and tax, and 42 total bids. Imagine how much this card will go for as soon as the next 250,000 of these suckers get graded.
Out of Astoria, New York.
Wow, that's where. So yeah, that's like near me.
So, forgive my naivete. I mean, there's no way of knowing that this was the first, right? Outside of the chain of command. I mean, there's no way of knowing, or is that part of the pop report?
To fully verify it, he may have been able to take a screenshot where it showed PSA whatever grade 1 on the pop report, but I don't think there's any way to truly verify. Well, this is the 10/29th card that got graded for this player. It'd be kind of cool to see.
Does anybody care, honestly, at the end of the day? And then, besides, wouldn't you want to be the two?
To put the actual description or sticker on the slab that would say first graded. So that was kind of cool back in the day, but I don't think
Wouldn't you want the 215th graded, since that's the number of the card? That way you could say it's an eBay 1 of 1.
Or the jersey number.
Oh, there's that. See, now we're talking about the fact that you have the first plus the jersey number plus the 215th plus the Union Glass, which is never moving goalpost as the next one. It's like the quarterback. I just signed the richest quarterback contract in the history for 3 days until the next quarterback contract gets signed, right? It's, Patrick Mahomes, sorry, but now you're the 8th highest paid quarterback. Yeah, but for a day or two, I was the highest. Remember, Derek Carr signed that 5-year, $125 million contract 4 years ago with the Raiders. And at the time, 5 for $125 was the highest in the NFL history. And now it's dwarfed by how many contracts. So anyway, hey, good for you. You overspent on the first to market.
Yeah, I want to meet that person.
Yeah. I guess there's some vanity in being able to say you had the first. But so as I alluded to at the top of the show, the local radio show had mentioned not once but twice in 2 different segments, in the morning and the afternoon, about this particular ESPN story. A rare Kobe Bryant card sold for $2 million. The card was a 97-98 Metal Universe Precious Metal Gems Emerald. The card was, of course, not an RPA or even a rookie card, which is nice to see. Cards that aren't in that classification selling at ridiculous sums. The Bryant card is numbered 4 out of 100, and only the cards 1 through 10, so the first 10 of the 100, are emerald hued in this particular set. Cards 11 through 100 of the Precious Metal Gems are red. So the first 10 are emerald, the last 90 are red. It's what carries a premium with this. The Bryant card received an 8.5 grade from BGS, tied for the best graded known example of this card. PSA's highest graded version of this emerald parallel is a 7, according to the article. For the record, the card was sold through PWCC, so you can take that for what that is. What's the last time you spent $2 million on a card, guys? What'd you buy?
I can't tell you the last time I spent 100 on a card.
Yeah, but we're talking about $2 million, which is something you probably do every week, every other week, quarterly.
With your credit card.
Yeah, right.
We're just talking about Nick going out of his comfort zone and grabbing $8 Don Mattingly. It's like, shoot, man, I spend $20 on a card, and it's like, okay, do I buy the wife flowers also? Do I lie to her about what I spent? Do I try to say I got, tuck some that I already had, say I got all 3 of these, babe? Hey, beautiful card.
So
it's
this
just
is good.
It's mind-boggling to me. Like $2 million. I know this card is really, really scarce, and I guess this is like modern day art. Like this is just a new, like, I've got this and you don't. Like, it's a $2 million on a card. I don't know.
But it's relative, right? Because we're talking about spending $20 on a card maybe being a lot in our budgets, in our socioeconomics. But if you've got the money of Ken Kendricks of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and if you're a multi-billionaire, what's $2 million to say, I want this card, I got it.
Right.
It's all relative to your personal finance, and it's not like Nick or Steph or Ben are buying this card. It's somebody that has extremely deep pockets and doesn't care about $2 million.
Right. This is like high end. This is like high end art. It's the same thing, right? There's a stratus, of strato society that's dealing in this. That's not in this room virtually.
Yeah. My dad and I were talking about this at dinner, and he's like, who would spend $2 million on the card? And I'm like, well, not you, not me, not us. I mean, the three of us plus him and 100 of our closest Twitter friends aren't going to be able to pool our finances together. Perhaps if we all sold our houses and used the equity in our house, we could. And now we have fractional ownership of this. But yeah, it's not us. But gorgeous card. So congratulations. Hopefully there were no shenanigans, considering it was a PWCC sale. But when you get local radio shows talking about this card, it also begs the question. This is what I was going to say if I had gotten through in the afternoon show was, you got to be careful, because like Gary V, what he said on Rich Eisen's show is the whole Zion $20,000 card out of a $5 pack. It's like, Gary, finish the sentence. The odds of that happening are so remote. You have a better chance of getting struck by lightning when there's no thunderstorm. It will happen. Somebody will pull it, but stop. It's just.
I mean, look, right? I've opened product for the last 6 years now, or since 2015 from Topps. And I want to say, I think the highest value card I pulled of all their products was like a $200 or $300 card out of, 5-6 years of consistent product. I think 2020 was slow because they just didn't have stuff to send out. Right. So just like, I've gotten a box of almost everything, and the highest card I've pulled is $300. So, and I must have opened, I don't know, 20 boxes a year at that time. So let's say 100 boxes.
Yeah. I talk about it all the time on Twitter. I haven't mentioned on the show that, the negative net return value is less than 50% on the average box. If you get 50% of your money back, you're doing well. On the law of averages, the only way to make your money back is to do it in volume. And most of us do not live in a world where we can do that consistently. Just what it is.
And this set is like the perfect confluence of great design, great photo, the unfortunate passing, obviously, the low numbered effect where, as Ben had mentioned, that the first 10 are green, whereas 11 through 100 are red. The purchase by Marvel, or the purchase of Marvel, one way or the other, for Skybox, and some of those brands that they got some of the comic artists into this. Everything's there. Plus, late 90s, early 2000s stuff that isn't as appreciated as, say, 1988, 2011, etc. It's a great looking card. Someone else's money.
You have a net worth of $500 million. Cool. You bought this card. Now you own this asset, this high dollar asset now, right? Now you're worth $498 million. What's it really matter, right? I mean, we're just, tomorrow morning you go out to the Starbucks and we were talking about Charlie not having a ton of money in his bank account at this time or that time, going out and buying an icy for $1 would have been a significant impact on his personal finances. We're not talking about this. Whoever bought this didn't have $5 million in their bank account and dropped $2 million and lost 40% of their net worth. That's not how this works. Most of us are very particular about how we spend our money just because we don't have a lot of it.
Yeah. And
spending it on a non-necessity like this, trading card in general, right? Whether it's a $1 base card, 18 cents on Sport Lots plus shipping, it's like, that's a significant portion of money for a lot of people. That's not this. This whoever bought this in this private sale had the money. I don't say to waste, but to spend. It probably didn't hurt their pockets any. And now they've got it. They've got it in their portfolio of investing in cards, and good for them. And eventually, if they want to move off of this card at any point, I'm sure they will be able to get their money back, or at least a significant portion of it. And even if they got half their money back and they sold it for $1 million, they're probably of the mindset of, I owned it. I had it for a while. Gretzky had the Wagner for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He can say he owned it. He doesn't anymore, but it's also his copy in perpetuity. It's the Gretzky Wagner now. This is the, Dave Smith, precious metal Kobe. So
a quick aside. I got better photos. Can't mention enough how much I do appreciate this, Jared.
Really cool.
Nice little extra surprise that I didn't know about. That it's unbelievably cool, touching piece, and it's not leaving my collection for $2 million.
See, that Steph goes back to what we ask everybody about: what one card would you own if you could only own one? This is a personalized piece in dedication to your mother. May she rest in peace. It's from a friend of ours, in Jared. Not to mention just the artwork itself is a gift in and of itself. But the Easter egg and the personal dedication, there's nothing cooler than that. That's what this hobby's about. Yeah, what an amazing piece.
Yeah, my condolences, man. This is a wonderful tribute.
It is.
It really is. Yeah, really is. Phenomenal. Jared's the best. So we'll get him on the show again in April and talk to him, and you can thank him personally on the show. And speaking of the aforementioned dub mentality, how about this for a whiff via Twins Almanac? Dub's favorite player of all time, every of the time, the legendary Minnesota Twin great Kent Hrbek, signed a bunch of Topps cards. However, the image is of him swinging through a pitch. And so if we've got the image handy, Steph, if you want to share that.
I'm pulling it up, yeah. This was where's the button for the thingy? That looks like the 85 35th anniversary. So this would have been 86. So yeah, last year's Topps. The insert parallel for the 35th anniversary of 86 Topps with Kent Hrbek's signature down at the bottom. Bats way out here, kind of got the parallax effect, and there's the ball.
And he signed all those because he knew that Dub was going to want one in his PC.
Well, he can bury it at the bottom of his collection and hope the collection doesn't fall over.
No, that's going to be the iconic piece. That's going to sit on top of all the Ron Gants.
Definitely likes to see him whiffing.
Yeah.
He does. He commented on it. He's talking about how much he wants it. So anyway, just a little bit of jab in there in Dub's direction because we know how much of a I'm just waiting for the Kent Hrbek tattoo that we know Dub has sitting somewhere. Roberto Clemente. Isn't that how you always say his last name?
Clemente.
Now you finally figured it out. Okay. So good friend of most of ours. Yeah. Sue's Yanks chick. She hates painter's tape on top loaders. Perhaps we don't all have the issue that she has and that she tweeted about, but apparently she chipped her nails trying to remove tape from a top loader.
I haven't had that happen. However, I have had the top of my cuticles ripped from pulling too much out of top loaders.
I've had that too when I was going through a bunch of sleeves. Your fingers start to. But still, can we all agree that tape is no longer needed in the hobby? Literally, we have the technology to ship safe using no tape.
Hey, enlighten us again. because I've caught in and out because I am guilty of using tape. Well, I don't feel guilty, but I was going to ask you. I'm like, you keep advocating for it, and I'm like, all right, I'm listening.
Okay, so I mean, you buy a card from me. I put it in a penny sleeve. I put it in This is key. This is key. An appropriately sized top loader so that it's not loose. Okay, not too tight, but whatever point the card is. Okay, and then you take that top loader. You use a dummy board, whether it's the dummy boards you get in packs or cardboard. No painter's tape. You don't need painter's tape. You slide both of those into a team bag. If you want to use tape on the team bag to tighten the team bag down, you can.
Right.
But you should never put it over the top of the top loader because I've had cards, chip because they get too loose and they touch that adhesive. I mean, it's adhesive. Sure. And so as long as you put it in there, the only time you should ever use tape is when you're sending a card to a friend. I used so much tape on something I sent to Steph one time, just out of spite. But yeah, penny sleeve, top loader, dummy board or cardboard, team bag, seal the team bag, use tape there if you need to. But that leads us into our next topic, actually. Something that I was not aware of that existed until a couple hours ago. Ivan at Watch the Breaks tweeted out a picture and tagged at Collector Caps. Collector caps are top loader caps that conceal loaders with, so that you no longer need to use any kind of tape or even a team bag when sending a single card. It'll actually clip the end of slides right over the top loader. Collector caps are based out of Boston, Massachusetts. A pack of 25 sells for $8.50. Works out to 34 cents each, which does make it considerably higher than a team bag. Excuse me. Depending on your cost. Shipping from Massachusetts to California was $5, bringing the landed cost of each unit to 54 cents if you're buying just one bag of them. They come in a variety of colors, including ash, teal, lemon, sky, midnight, mix with glow in the dark, OG mix, clear, black, red, and the blue and green, which are both sold out as of right now. They also sell penny sleeves and merch, and they're coming on about the cards to talk about this product on March 23rd.
I like the idea of these, and I think I've seen a few of these in the past. But essentially, it's kind of like a Lego cap that you can put over the top of a top loader. I like the idea of them being reusable, and I'd like to see whether it's just for single card sizes or whether they will eventually have 35 point, 55 point, 100, etc. All of the varying sizes, and that's the thing to ask, I suppose. But I do like the look and the appeal of them.
Yeah, it could be like a cool niche kind of product of someone thinking around like, hey, how can I try to solve something in the hobby and make a product that you can make money off of? And I'd be interested to see like what patents they have so they don't maybe get undercut by like a foreign company or something like that, right? That can, put it out for maybe like a lot less, but
or get bought out by Fanatics and have T-branded ones.
Hey, that's a
Not
nice
I hope
little
that
idea.
happens,
Yeah.
We will ask them a month from now when we have them on. Kyle, I'm assuming, is the owner, CEO. Talked to him today via DM and invited him on the show. He was very gracious. So we'll have some of those questions for him in a month. So if you have any, let us know what you might want to ask. You can check out their website. I think go to Collector Caps on Twitter if you're on Twitter. And there'll be a link to their website. Obviously, you're going to need to buy these in bulk to buy down the at least the associated shipping cost. But if nothing else, if it's just something that you send to your friends, but this obviously is another tool that will help us ship safe and prevent us from ruining cards with adhesive. So there's no reason for Scotch tape and blue painter's tape if you ship safe. This is just one more avenue that'll lead in that direction. So I'm not personally a fan of giving Ken Golden and his auction house any pub on our show, but this was Golden Co. on Twitter shared the 2007 AG Allen and Ginter chase card for President's Day a couple of days ago. On Monday, we had the holiday.
Yep.
The Allen Ginter relic card was a 1/1 George Washington strand of hair, which was Beckett graded 9 mint.
It has to be part of a wig, right?
That was my first thought. Was all of those guys wore wigs back then? So was it actually his scalp hair or a wig hair?
I mean, it looks short enough. It could definitely be, the back of the head hair or something like that. But it's
weird.
It's just it's perfect for Ginter. I'll say that.
It's cool. I mean, I don't know what the sale price was. I don't have that handy. I don't know if it was actually being sold through Golden Auctions, but it's cool, right?
Just ignore the top comment on the side.
Yeah. Well, there was a few juvenile comments questioning where the hair perhaps came from on George Washington's body. And of course, that's what she said. You're going to open yourself up for juvenile comments when you're tweeting out something like this. But I saw that come across our timeline. I think Steph shared it in the group DM. I'm like, that's cool. And 2007 was the first year of Ginter, so we hadn't seen it yet, right? I mean,
06 is.
06. I thought 07 was okay. So Ginter was still brand new, fresh to us. We didn't necessarily know what it was yet. Now if it came out in 2022, we'd be like, okay, yeah, it's still fantastic and phenomenal, but it's run of the mill. We know what it is.
As much as the I word might trigger you, I just heard Angela from the other room screaming about you remembering Ginter stats.
What was it? 2008 was the first year. 2012. I mean, I'm going to text her tomorrow all kinds of random stuff about Ginter that's going to irritate the crap out of her. Love it, Angela.
Expletives now.
Imagine uploading more. This was friggin' phenomenal. Imagine uploading more pictures on eBay than you intended to via Wax Museum podcast. We've all sold stuff on eBay. You upload the wrong picture. Whoops, let me go back in there and edit it. I forgot to change the pictures when I'm creating a similar, I added the same card twice. eBay is selling some football, basketball, and baseball cards on eBay. How do we know this? Because that's literally what the title says. It literally says football, basketball, and baseball cards. So scroll through the pictures. When you scroll through the pictures, after the first couple of football, baseball, and basketball cards, you start to see pictures of different rooms of a mobile home inside and out. You get to see pictures of what their porch looks like, what their hallway looks like, the fan in their hallway. Imagine if the pictures that you accidentally uploaded were not necessarily G-rated. There's an air mattress with a dirty air mattress.
Looks like a standard minor league apartment.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, is that his marketing? Like, look, dude, I live. Nothing wrong with sleeping on an air mattress. Put one in my living room every once in a while, camp out with my boys while we're watching Muppet Babies. All right, so I'm absolutely cool with the air mattress, but I'm probably not going to – I'll at least put a sheet on it. Obviously, he meant to upload – or assuming it was a he. The seller meant to upload more baseball, football, and basketball cards and instead had pictures of presumably their home.
I mean, I've seen all sorts of these on meme channels or whatnot where a guy's taking a picture of a microwave to sell and he's very clearly in the nude.
Oh, ha, 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 ha.
Or like a microwave it's the same type of effect. Like or more so, and I'm not going to out any names. There was a guy that was on Twitter selling cards years and years and years and years ago, probably close to a decade now, where he was giving the traditional crotch shot, but his junk popped out of the side of his shorts. So you just see, well, some junk wax, all right.
All right. Speaking of juvenile comments, that's what she said, right? So more from the files of the shit you see on eBay. Case number 41,754. This one came via Paul
Is this like the rules of
_car
acquisition?
1. Pardon me?
Nothing.
Okay. eBay seller is selling a 2007 Bowman Derek Jeter Superfractor. No big deal, right?
Uh-huh.
Great card. Anybody would be happy to have this as part of their collection. However, when you read the description, you get this. The seller is selling the card on behalf of his company. No bids will be accepted, and all bids will be removed. You can only buy the card at the buy it now price through a private link listed in the eBay description, which we will not mention. Also, they will not respond according to the description to eBay message. So nice try. They also had or have, I'm not sure, to 2012 Red Refractor Tom Brady, a Kaboom Justin Jefferson, and probably countless others listed with the same system in place, same description. Apparently, according to comments, this is a well-known Facebook scammer who creates multiple accounts and attempts to scam people out of money. So,
Pretty sure this is against terms of service. You
I
can't
would
have
think
outside
so.
sales.
I was going to say, this has to be a TOS violation.
Of all kinds, right? I mean, just be careful when you're buying something, especially like this. I mean, I would hope that if they're telling you to go to this private website and you're on eBay, we'd all be smart enough, educated enough to know that that's a no-no and go, you know what? Unfortunately, it sucks because what if that's a card you really do want? But I'm assuming you're going to give this person the money and you're not going to get the card. Could be wrong, but let's just go ahead and go out there. If you answer your phone and they're like, hey, we're going to send the cops to your house if you don't pay this IRS debt, give us $20,000 and we'll stop the cops from coming. You give them the money. Just be careful. Yeah,
if you get contacted by the IRS on your phone, one, they don't do that. And two, don't give them your computer details. Don't install things. Don't, please.
Yeah, they literally don't contact you. Just tomorrow your bank account is drained and seized by the IRS. They don't need to contact you. They'll send you a letter saying you have X amount of days to pay. Otherwise, we're going to do this. And if you don't respond, your bank account will be drained and seized by the government. They're not going to call you and tell you they're going to send the cops to your front door. But I posted this in our show DM, and Steph said he can one-up that, the aforementioned one that we just mentioned. How about this response from a seller to a buyer after the buyer won the auction? The one Steph shared from a seller named I Am Chris Rankin. He sent this. It says, hey, I'm not sure why it let you send me the money for the baseball card. I only listed it to try to figure out a value for the card I'm interested in selling, but I'm not sure what a good price for both of us is. A good price is how much the card sold for. That's the price of the card.
That's not the true value because only one person bid on it, and you just don't understand, Ben.
Yeah. Hey, so apparently the buyer was welcome to give him more money than he wanted the card for at auctions. So
this sounds like some nonsense that I've ran into on Facebook. Trying to buy stuff, and then someone's like, "Oh, that's a price." Oh, okay, yes. And then like an hour later, like someone just offered me $50 more. Can you match it? I'm like, we just agreed on a price.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't do business like that. And I guess there's some people that either are inexperienced selling or just like don't know, how to handle this or whatever. Greedy, I don't know. Desperate, I don't know. Fill in a blank, right?
Yeah, there's so many of these stories out there, and it's so hard for us. It's so hard for me when I write the show notes not to want to share this stuff because it really is so comical that you just can't help but scratch your head. That people.
Sometimes I go back and ask myself, hey, could the seller potentially be like a teenager? And I don't mean that in like a strange, weird way. I mean that like, again, it might be somebody who doesn't have experience, just period, like dealing with selling, right? Like, could this be a kid? And then sometimes I'm like, all right, this might be a kid that I'm actually dealing with, And then it makes it a little easier for me to be like, all right, this might be someone who has no experience.
You might be right. I mean, you want to give the person the benefit of the doubt, but we've been around the block so many times with this kind of crap that we just assume the worst right off the bat. So, and perhaps that's also your personal perspective from what you do for a living. You know, where you see that firsthand every day in your personal line of work, where the education level of the teenagers, they're younger in life. They don't have that experience, where somebody like me that doesn't just assumes that it's some knucklehead.
Right. No, and a lot of them are like, I don't know about so much sports cars, definitely sneakers. A lot of them are like selling sneakers on different platforms, including like eBay. So, right, it's not outside the realm of possibility if there's teenagers that got into like reselling or like, oh, I can actually sell stuff here.
Yeah. No, I mean, good for you. Shame on me for assuming that, but we don't know. I mean, obviously they're behind a curtain of eBay. It's just text.
Yes.
So we only can interpret it for what it is. You see so much of this, though, you become jaded to where it's hard to look for what if it is somebody that, I mean, with these stories of the Kobe Bryant selling for $2 million and the Gary Vee saying, oh, everybody and their brother went out into the garage and pulled their junk wax era cards out and started looking them up on eBay and thinking that they had a gold mine on their hands because some story, the local news, the local radio shows are reporting these, not intentionally from a naive standpoint, but that's kind of how it's coming across. They're only reporting the news in front of them. They don't have the experience that we do, where when we hear it, go, dang, you guys. That's what frustrated me when I heard it twice. It's like you're reading the ESPN article on the radio, and now people are going to assume that if they have a Kobe Bryant card, it's going to be worth $2 million. So let me go in my garage and dig one out because I've got a Kobe Bryant card. Okay, but you don't have the precious metal emerald that was so highly sought after at that time. You don't. You've got one from 2005, and good for you. It's a good card to have. But it's a dollar bin card. And it's to no fault of the news, the radio guy, they don't know.
No. And there's no talking to that kind of a seller.
Yeah.
Like when you have someone who's inexperienced, forget a kid, right? Let's use the example you gave. And they're like, maybe they have like visions like, oh, this will get me out of a bill that I have to pay. They're like, my Kobe Bryant card, right? You see on Facebook all the time, like $300. And you're like, here, dude, here's the last 5 eBay sold auctions. It's $2. You're trying to take my money. You don't know what you're talking about. You're scamming me. Like,
well, if you want a good laugh, just go on OfferUp, type in the word card, scroll through. There's no reasoning with any of those people. And they only know what they know.
I have
which is not much.
The perfect response to this. I need to find the link, but I think both of you will appreciate and love this. So keep talking for like a minute.
I remember there used to be, and I don't know if I've said this when I was on it before, but there used to be a guy who used to like purposely get into it with the people on like Craigslist who had their junk wax collection and thought they were sitting on a gold mine. Eventually, he would send them like a picture of just the cards being burned.
In 2010 we pulled a 1 of 1 out of a pack. I just got back into the hobby. I was completely naive as to the 2010 hobby versus the 1993 hobby that I left behind, and I pulled a 1 of 1, and I was talking to my wife like, we should sell this because we could put $1,000 in our checking account. And it was some pro debut 1 of 1. It was maybe worth $40 or $50. It was a true 1 of 1. But bottom line was the naivete that I had in the hobby that not every 1 of 1 holds this premium, that there are low end 1 of 1s. Just like, again, I have a Kobe Bryant card. One just sold for $2 million. I just hit the lottery. And it's like, you have to understand exactly how rare this is. And then when we go with the other variables, because in the ESPN article, somebody from PWCC is quoted as saying, "Well," and we all know as an educated hobbyist what PWCC is and what it means to the hobby and the rumors and innuendos about and around them. ESPN's not going to know. They just say, like, "Oh, hey, that's who it sold to. So let me get a representative." And of course, PWCC is happy to, have their name thrown on such a major website.
They emailed me like right away. Like, was it sometime last year? Oh no, well, right around when the Tops takeover was, right? With Fanatics, right away they DM me. We're like, we have people available from PWCC if you need comments on the hobby. I must have gotten and I chose not to even write about it because like two other people at Forbes that are like higher up got to the news, right? But I had about 5 different companies email me offering like, well, we're here if you need a quote. Like, that's how bad these companies want, to be covered.
So you guys ready for this one?
Yeah, let's
let's have the audio shared.
All right.
So this is via
TikTok. Drum set for $300. Any takers? Is the price negotiable? Yeah, sure. Make me an offer. I'll give you $100. That's less than half my asking price. $100, man. Take it or leave it. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it. Anyone else? Hey, is this still available? Yeah, man. I literally just posted it. You interested? All right, good talk. Anyone else? What's up, man? Look, I just need that kick drum. I can't just sell you the kick drum. It's a necessary part of the whole drum set. Sounds like you didn't understand me, man. I just need the kick drum, all right? And I'll be by your house at 4 o'clock to pick it up. I'm not even going to be home at 4. You don't even know where I live. Get the fuck out of here. Anyone else? Hey, what's the lowest you'd be able to sell it for? Well, I'm asking $300 for it, so I'd like to get close to that, but make me an offer. Nah, man, let's cut the bullshit. Let's save some time. I'll just pay the lowest price you'd be willing to take. All right, does anyone have a serious offer here? What's up, man? I'm your guy. Look, I love the set. I'll give you $250 for it. Yes, finally. You got a deal, man. When do you want to pick it up? What the fuck?
There's so much truth to that.
There's another guy with a TikTok account that used, I think, different voices and actually like posted real encounters that he had from Facebook Marketplace, and they were so like in line with what that guy said, or they were just really weird encounters. I don't have like the account saved, but they were hilarious. But I've met some really interesting folks trying to sell stuff or buy stuff right on Facebook.
No, I sold something starting lineup for 1988. The display that held like 8 figures, where you could display like a team set of the figures. I had it when I was a kid. It's like it's sitting out in the garage collecting dust. Let me sell it because it can go to somebody else. And guy makes an offer, which was considerably less than I had listed for, but it was probably, I had for 27. He's like, yeah, I'll pay 13. I'm like 17. He's like, okay, but can we work on the shipping? I'm like, no, we can't get a better deal on the shipping. That's literally the hard cost to USPS. He's like, but I live in this zip code. So I'm like, all right, listen, the shipping I had on it was $10.99. So it's got to go priority because it's over £1, and that starts at like $9.25. So it's like we already have like a small tiny window. And I typed in his calculated shipping, and it came back to $10.86. And I'm like, I could give you a 13-cent discount, but if you're thinking we're going to knock this shipping down to like $7, it's not going to happen. At that point, either you can afford the item or you can't. And if you can't afford it, because again, I'll sell it to you for 17, even though I was asking 28. I'm okay with that. It goes to you, make it happy, So basically, you're getting my price out the door at that point, right? But the $11 is literally right at the hard cost to USPS, and it's like, no, I can't. It's like either you can afford to buy something or you can't. There's so many stories. I'm sure we all have.
Well, so many people are now like conditioned because of like your Amazon Targets of the world, Walmart, of like free shipping.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't understand, like, especially for the small seller, we cannot eat the shipping costs. Like, I've stopped selling with free shipping.
Oh, you too.
Just because I'm like, I think buyers need to see it. There's a shipping cost to this and that. if I sell, especially something that's like priority, especially like I can't sell it free shipping because if it goes from here to California, I'll literally lose money. I like on the right, it might like if it's sneakers, like it might cost $10 to ship to New York and like 30 to go out your way. And that might be the difference of like the profit or no profit on what I'm selling. So no more free shipping for buyers. I think they need to understand that like there is a cost, and people who don't use the post office regularly have no idea what shipping costs. They go there like, oh my God, it's so expensive for priority mail. No, that's what they charge.
It is. And cut off the flaps of your cardboard on the inside, use less tape if you can, because all of these add extra ounces to your package, which, cost you more shipping, which, if you want to send that savings off to your buyer, I would have done anything I could to save that guy a couple of bucks if I could have, but I just couldn't because it's just what it weighed versus what it was going to cost to ship to where he's at. And yes, I'm in California. You're in New York. Unfortunately, there's this thing called the Mississippi River in between us. And that's kind of the divide where going from California, anything west of the Mississippi River costs less money. Once we cross over the Mississippi, then all of a sudden we have a problem because that's going to adjust that shipping cost just a little bit higher, a marginal cost, maybe an extra $1 or $2. But that means that Nick's going to pay more than somebody down in Los Angeles or out in Colorado might pay for the same item, just because it's got to go further. But in all fairness, it's going thousands of miles further, or at least another 1,500 miles or 2,000, depending on, anyway. So I did have another one too from eBay. Dude was selling Mark McGuire card, $20 economy shipping on, and I was like, seriously, $20? And he's like, he sends me a message back, adjusted. And I looked at it. I'm like, all right, whatever, right? Put $5 on it, $4.50. He had an $8.15 economy, and I'm like, thanks for that, man. It's like, okay, good times, man. Gotta love eBay. Any final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here for the night? I know it's way late where Nicholas is at.
Do want to shoot an appreciation again to Jared Kelly and Nick for coming on. It's one of our best guests, one of our better guests, and I love hearing all the new stories that you bring or that you remember.
I really think that we talked to you for hours and hours and hours and not run out of stuff to talk about without even getting hobby related.
Well, like the fact that Jim Tomei was just announced as the Players Alumni Association president.
There we go. Hey, I could talk forever about the Alumni Association because it's interesting. Like, again, I had to deal with all these entities. They're not what people think they are. Let's put it like that. If he's the head of the MLBPAA, which is not the union, it's a completely different thing. And it's not a benefit organization for the alumni. It's literally like your high school's alumni organization, and they ask you for hey, send us $25 because it'll go help the school. Like, it's basically the same thing.
All right, guys. Well, let's get out of here.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We're live.
Ben dropped.
Yep.
What he meant to say was, we're live every Wednesday, 10 p.m. Central, I guess 8 Eastern. Make sure to subscribe, review all our shows on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else at About the Cards. You can follow Ben at... We hit the button to send him back into the stream. You can follow Ben at... Nope, he's gone. Yeah. Follow Ben at Our Trading Cards. Follow me at JunkWorks2ins. Nick, where can we find you again?
At Examine Baseball.
Examine Baseball. And we'll put all the links down below, of course. Thank you again for coming on. And please share your hobby stories, great polls, send your questions our way, and keep listening. And we'll see you guys next week.